have Trinity Campbell from River Dog Farm, Chris Hay from Say Hay Farm, and Ross Troop from St. John Family Farms. Here, all are actively taking care of pasture poultry. And I think I'll just let you go from there and hear about your farms.
Okay, basically I co-own and operate River Dog Farm. It's about an hour northwest of Davis in Cape Valley. It's about a 400-acre farm, and we do a combination of row crops, certified, all of it certified organic. So we've got row crops, pastured pork, pastured chicken, almonds, walnuts, and fruit and vegetables, and eggs. And we do like a combination of marketing. We do farmers markets, wholesale, direct to stores and restaurants. We've been farming for 29 years. This is our 29th year. We employ 50 people. And we do all of our slaughtering off-site. We don't do any on-farm slaughtering. And I'll just do like a basic description of the pastured poultry system that we have set up. We do about 4,500 meat birds at any given time, about 2,000 laying hens. We order about 500 meat birds every week. They come from Pennsylvania, from Freedom Hatchery. They come by mail, so we pick them up from the post office. They come in boxes of 100, two-day-old chicks. And we harvest about that same number each week. At about week 14.
Sorry, I wasn't quite thinking. Do you want to show the pictures?
Did you still have them or? I didn't bring them, I just thought you had them. So.
Do you have?
They were from
I have them. Yeah.
That'd be helpful if we can.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I meant to ask you. But yeah, Tim said you had them. So.
Yeah.
So I can keep going. And
You can keep
play
going.
the pictures later. So
So, and I'm sure we have them on her computer.
I can email too.
So, yeah, the meat birds we harvest about 500 a week, and the laying hens, it's variable depending on time of year, but like ideally we have a CSA too. So some of our CSA customers who get a veggie box each week, they can add on a dozen eggs or 2 dozen eggs. Or more, depending on how many we have. At certain times of the year, like right now, we have a shortage of eggs. Ideally, we bring about 200 dozen to farmers markets. We do 4 farmers markets a week. In the summer, sometimes we have a committee. Actually, last summer, unfortunately, we had to give some of our eggs away to the Yellow Food Bank. That was really difficult. But we just couldn't offload them unless we, basically gave them away at a low cost. We'd rather just, we couldn't invest the trucking cost and all that if we were giving them away at a lower price. So we sell them for, this year we went up to $9 a dozen for a medium large rainbow pack. And for our jumbo pack, we do them at 11 a dozen. Last year's price, and for a few years up until now, it was 8 and 10 per dozen. And they're hugely popular at our farmers market. The meat is not as popular. People love it once they buy it, but we sell the whole bird with the feet and the head on. We process at New American Poultry in Sacramento, so that's another hour to transport, time to wait, and then an hour trip back. So the meat birds we primarily sell to restaurants. That's like our set number every week. Certain restaurants want us. Given number. So that's a more predictable flow of product and income. The farmers market meat sales are just a little more erratic, but people still like to have, we call it organic animals. The label's not organic because the facility where they're slaughtered and processed is not certified organic facility. We do spend an extraordinary amount of money on the organic feed, and we're deliberating whether or not we can continue to do that because it's just almost too cost prohibitive. Even though we've been dedicated, our whole farming career for 29 years, we've been dedicated to certified organic growing practices.
Yeah, we have your photo.
Okay.
I don't have a clicker, but feel free to let me know when you want me to click and
So that's kind of an overview of our pastured poultry system. We rotate the laying hens and the meat birds through fields that are fallow or orchard floor, because we do that for the meat birds for the shade. We plant a combination of alfalfa, ryegrass, and clover. And let's say we've got like a 5-acre block, and we have our coops, our old trailer beds with houses built onto those. And you can see some of them in the photos. But what makes people like our eggs so much, and the meat too, the meat breed is the Freedom Ranger from Pennsylvania. It's got a lot of yellow, flavorful fat, and people really like that. And the laying hens, we do a combination of, there's a hatchery outside of Davis called Vega Hatchery, or Vega Farm. We get the chicks, our laying hens, from there. We also get a variety of other kinds, like Araucana, Americana, Barred Rock. People really like blue eggs, even though they don't taste different.
Yeah.
They like the rainbow variety in the carton. And so, but what I was getting to about the pasture, so here's a great image of the alfalfa. This is like a semi-permanent pasture that's a thick stand of alfalfa, and then it has the ryegrass and the clover in there, and they forage through that, and it makes the yolks intensely yellow, like a dark yellow orange, and people at market go crazy for that, for the flavor, and they think it also has more nutrients, which it may. We get a ton of feedback from pregnant women whose doctors say eat pastured eggs and eggs with darker yolks. We also get a lot of feedback from people with medical issues, people recovering from cancer, I have one customer in particular who had a back surgery, and the doctors messed up, and she got paralysis. She's recovering from this neurological trauma, and the doctor she has now is saying, get the pastured eggs with dark yolks, because this is going to help you rebuild your neurological system. Stuff like that. It's not that scientific, but that's what we get the feedback about, and people's doctors are telling them, get these kind of eggs to do X, Y, Z. So I think there have been studies about pastured eggs, hens that have been raised on a greener diet have more nutrients. And what else? Let's see on this one for a second. This is our feeding system that we designed. It's basically just a trough system. These are PVC pipes cut in half. We pour the feed into there. It's a lot of hand labor. And then it has this lid to keep the feed dry, and the chickens just can go underneath it. So that's the feed that we supplement with the pasture that they get. And then another part of their diet is all of our culls from our vegetable operation we give to the animals, the pigs and the chickens. That's part of why we got into livestock. We weren't originally a livestock farm. It happened kind of halfway in our evolution as a farm. And we also we have a tanker truck, and we go and pick up whey from a cheese making company called Fogo Creamery at Petaluma. We pick up the whey and bring that back. We soak some of the grain in the whey for the chickens to eat it, makes it more digestible. And then we also give some of the whey to the pastured hogs. We pour it into troughs, and sometimes they even bathe in it. They just climb into the troughs and start lapping it up. They're literally in hog heaven when that happens. And what else do they eat? Ice cream from Three Twins Ice Cream. It's a liquid form of the ice cream when they have overruns and they can't quite finish filling tubs. That's also over in Marin. We pick that up. So they have a very luxurious diet. And
How do you store the whey? Do you feed it out all at once?
we have the tanker trucks, and when that comes back to the farm, we put it in cubes, like a big plastic cube. It's about 4x4 with a metal frame. We just fill that by gravity with a hose into the tank, and then that goes, for the pigs, it goes into like a liquid where they drink their water.
But I mean, how quickly do you have to use it before it starts?
We use it we get it once a week, so we use it that week. We don't refrigerate it. It just kind of starts to get active, but it doesn't really become like a health hazard. It's just a supplement to their feed.
You know it's not a health hazard?
I'm pretty sure it's not. I mean, it's not feasible for us to refrigerate it. I just don't. For them, I mean, they're healthy. We haven't seen any signs of it be detrimental to their health.
How do you soak the grain?
With the troughs, we just actually pour. So we have those tanks, the cubes, and we fill up buckets and then we pour it into the.
As you feed it?
Yeah,
Not
where the
soak
feed
it
is.
ahead of time.
No.
You said you had 50 employees, but how many work for the chickens?
It's a small percentage of the 50. So we have one full-time person who's doing the laying hens, and we've got one full-time person doing the meat birds. And then for the pigs, it's 1 to 2, 1.5 full-time people.
So one full-time person can collect all those eggs every day?
Yeah, they do it twice a day. And that doesn't include the labor staff to do the marketing. That's just for, on the farm, for taking care of the animals.
And how many eggs did you say? I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Well, at the markets we go to, 200 dozen per market is our optimal number. And that's in the Bay Area and Sacramento, so dense urban areas. Then we have our CSA, and that just fluctuates. Like some people want a dozen every week consistently. They have like a standing order. Some people want 2 dozen a week, so that's a little bit more variable.
So when you talk about how expensive the organic grain is, have you considered alternatives to help reduce the amount of grain you had to buy, like sprouting your own grain
Yes.
or growing extra vegetables that you're not selling?
Yeah, I forgot to mention we do grow a lot of our own grain. We're trying to do more. We just have limited land space because the higher value crops are like the row crops, or we grow some seed crops too. So we grow onion seed and basil seed. Those are just higher per acre returning crops. So the wheat and the cowpeas and any grain that we grow for the animals, we gotta find cheaper land and probably grow it like on a bigger tract somewhere outside of the area where we live. But yes, we are moving in that direction to reduce how much grain we have to buy. Should we bet that everybody else is gonna do?
Yeah, let's hold the question.
I mean, these are all good.
There will be time for questions. So let's hear from we're gonna hear from Ross next, and for, roughly 10 minutes or so, and then from Chris, and then I have some more questions to ask, and I'm sure you do too.
Good evening, I'm Ross with St. John Family Farms. We have about 12,000 lanes. And that's all we do. Okay. We're in Corning, California. We do everything ourselves, basically. We don't produce our feed, but we make our own feed. So we have sources for everything. We use a ration. Right now I'm mixing 6 different rations for all the different ages of our birds. So we can change our ration basically every other day, which allows us, with the cold weather coming, we can put more energy into the feed to help the hens get through the cold weather. And it's the same thing if it's hot, you need more energy for the hens. And as the hens get older, you need to drop the protein, so we can adjust all of that very quickly. We have a large egg washing machine. Is that me?
Is that you?
That's me.
Looks similar. Familiar.
So we buy our birds from Vega. If you're getting into the bird business, the key to find is the parent stock as close to where you live as possible. At one point, we're trying to bring birds from Alabama, thinking the heat would be fine because Corning gets hot. It's a dry heat. When it got to 100 degrees, you just picked up birds very quickly. So go ahead. So this is just a pasture in the neighborhood.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Oh.
What's the breed?
40.
It's from my hatchery in Davis, the same one that we use for some, Vega.
Vega Farms.
There's another one in California called Belt Hatchery. They've got like a whole menu of breeds.
Do they only
No.
have one kind of bird at the Vega?
Yeah, and that's one thing you have to remember too, is if you're gonna raise over 3,000 birds, you have to get your birds from a salmonella clean facility. Belt is not a salmonella clean facility, so
So they're not.
Vega is, yeah. So they have to be, I think all of the hatcheries are members of the NDIP, which is the National Poultry Improvement Program. But to be over 3,000, which the state and the FDA require you to be part of the salmonella program. So you're vaccinating all your chickens and all of that.
They come that way when you order them.
No,
You do it yourself.
I have to do 3 salmonella vaccines after the birds get to me.
When you say this,
Yes,
when you say this other hatchery is not salmonella-free,
clean. They're monitored
Certified.
probably, but they're not clean.
so they're part of the NPIP?
There's two different types of hatchery. Basically you have major production hatcheries and you have hobby hatcheries. Belt is a hobby hatchery. They are monitored. Hoover's is a monitored hatchery. They belong to the association, but they don't test all their parent stock.
So how would a person just coming into it know that?
Read all the information you can and ask all the questions you can. Okay, so we start our chicks in our coops from day one. So this is one of our portable coops. And these chicks are, probably 2 weeks old? I don't know. So we start, they're up. So the key is to get the roost down as quick as possible so they start roosting. That way, when they jump up to your nest boxes, they can jump up and not have a problem. You want your birds to be able to move around and move up and down. We use propane brooders, no lights. Propane brooders are radiant heat. So that the floor is warm, the walls are warm, everything's warm. You're not depending on a small light to keep your birds alive.
Here's the
Audience
Water.
questions now or
Later.
Yeah.
What's that?
Where's your water?
They're bell
Or
drinkers.
Oh, those are belts, right?
Yeah.
Those are lamps.
Go ahead.
How much more expensive is that heating setup compared to a light?
It's gonna be there.
I don't lose birds. It's irrelevant, believe it or not. Propane's cheap. The problem with heat lamps, you have so many and you'll get concentrations. Our birds are spread out at night, nice and happy. It just, since we went to the propane heaters, it's easy. And you don't, lights go out, you have all these issues. One of these pictures here, I'll get to it. That's just chicks, those are,
Well, for that.
you wanted to know about death and get used to it.
That's death.
That's death. You will get this raising chickens. These were no control of mine. This is what happens when you get birds shipped to you. So expect it. I've had whole shipments arrive dead. And the problem is, it's not just you lose the birds, you're off the record for another 3 weeks or 2 months. So you can really get behind quickly. But this will happen to you, I'm sure. This has happened to both of you at some point, if not.
Not at the beginning, but later you have
Yeah.
fed die-offs,
Yeah.
for sure.
Since Vega's come, it's been great. We do that. When I ship birds from out of state, I look at the rates, or not the rates, but the flight lines, what way they come. They fly at night. I was getting birds out of Alabama. I would pay the hatchery to drive to Atlanta and fly them from Atlanta to here on Delta overnight. So they would only be 5 hours. But we were doing good, and then one time, the airline didn't put them in the shade. And the whole one, and that's what this one is, the whole side of the pallet, they were fried. There's just no way around it. So if you're gonna do this, you gotta be prepared for this. This happens.
Do you have insurance on that?
Nope. And the mail will not provide you. Hopefully some hatcheries will replace them, some won't.
How much money are we looking at right there?
Those chicks were $2 a piece, and there's 50 right there, so there's $100 right there.
So the airline won't provide insurance either?
No airline will.
They do for other animals.
Not chickens. And you got to remember that most of them come in the mail, but they actually fly on FedEx planes.
Okay, let's hold questions for a little
Okay,
bit
so-
and let him. We'll get,
Yes,
we'll have
yes.
time for questions.
All right, so I have 5.5 employees, 5 full-time employees, and then 1 half-time employee that drives, and then I have 7 four-legged employees.
That's 3 of them.
This is my security system. Well, we've added to the group since this is Kobe, Cooper, Daisy, and Lucy's in the bottom there wrestling. If you don't want to have to deal with predators, dogs are the only way to go. We have Pyrenees and Akbash crosses, and I really like the Akbash Pyrenees cross. Hair's shorter and just a great temperament. But the Pyrenees are great too. We have a combination of all of them. So, but when you have dogs, you don't have an issue with coyotes, and hopefully, if you can find a dog that will chase the red-tailed hawks away, that makes it even better. What else do we have?
Packaging.
Yes. So this was just a picture I grabbed from the front. If you look at the background, there's our sorting machine. We have an egg washing machine from National Poultry Equipment in Iowa. So, and that's our old table there. We have a new table that actually turns the eggs the right direction, and you use a vacuum to put them in the cartons. So it goes quick. Our brand name is Outdoor Hens. We've kind of changed. We went to that because we were trying to get away from pastured poultry or pastured game, because back to your introduction about branding, the USDA decided not to give a definition for pasture. They came and talked to us local pasture people, and they also talked to the big people. And after they left our property, I was like, we're going to lose. We have to come up with a new name. So this is what we came up with the graphic designers. And you're going to spend a chunk of money with it. But you got to come up with something distinct and something to be able to distinguish yourself in the market.
I think that's all you have.
Okay.
You receive male and female the day old chicken, or you receive male on females only?
We only get females, and there's usually about 3 or 4 males in the group.
Oh,
No, guys take them home. Why feed a rooster? You don't get anything in production.
Do you have a specific breeder for your Akbash crosses?
No, well, we do, but you just find somebody that the dogs are on, their parents are on working stock, go visit the farm, see what they're doing, talk to the people, or find somebody that has a combination somewhere.
so, and the dogs are already trained?
No. Once you have one, and a lot of times you can find an older dog that somebody's trying to retire that you might want to take, you can bring in, but you can spend some time with a puppy and train them themselves. It takes a little bit of time, and then they'll learn from the older dogs. They have a lot of natural instinct, but they will learn from an older dog. And you don't want to buy a livestock guardian dog, usually that's somebody's trying to get rid of at 8 weeks. They need to spend some time with their parents. So you want them to be 14 to 20 weeks old when you get them.
What's the cost in the production of your livestock dogs? In other words, how much do they cost for you to keep them?
Well, the dog costs anywhere from $250 to $500, depending on what you're getting. And when you got the medical expenses with the vet and dog food, right now I go through about 50 pounds of dog food a week.
So it's
Plus all the eggs.
not insignificant then.
No, but I don't have any loss.
Which is
If
significant.
electric fence will work somewhat, but if that electric fence is out and you don't know it, you're going to get the coyotes, the raccoons, everybody will know your electric fence is off. I've tried, look, I don't know, you gotta, if it shorts out here, you can have a problem here. It's the dogs. We have a secure perimeter fence with hot wires so the dogs can't get out. One thing you need to know about guardian dogs is they don't know what a fence is.
I've had them come to my house.
That's
So I
as
know
far,
they're getting away.
because what they do is they see as far as they can. And as far as they can see, that's what they're going to protect. So our dogs pretty much know puppies will stay within, they learn their territory. But, you know, if I lose 100 birds to a coyote or fox getting in, it's not worth it. That's a lot of eggs we lose.
Okay. I have one question. Do you have any problem with beef there? Say that you produce 500 eggs. What kind of problem do you have?
We have predator problems too, but we do invest in, we close the coops at night and they have coops they can go to. So that has reduced our losses.
Well, last week Tim said you lost 25%.
Yes, but it was worse before. So
Worse than 25%?
yes. So closing the coops has helped. That's a daily job for somebody like in the evening to, when the sun sets, to come close all the coops.
Do you have any dogs?
We don't have guard dogs. We have pets. I think of the guard dogs more of sheep protection. I didn't know they did.
Well, it sounded like last week Tim thought you wouldn't have dogs because you had so many employees, and there was the issue of how the dogs would react to the employees.
I don't,
You mentioned.
I don't know if that'd be.
It's not an issue.
Yeah.
As long as the dogs are introduced to everybody and they know who everybody is,
All
it's not an
50
issue.
people? They have 50
Oh, yeah.
people?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Only a few are around the animals.
Oh,
That's
okay.
like designated separate jobs.
It's like the propane guy came today, and he was a new one 3 weeks ago, and when he first came on the property, I met him. The dogs barked at him very ferociously, and now they're all buddies, because they saw that he was with me and he's walked through the gate. As long as they see that and know that he becomes part of the family.
The herd.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a concern of mine though as well. Is issues around employees, if, you know, may or may not be an issue. But I think it's important to raise too that with the three of us up here, there's probably 5 or 6 different opinions of how things can be done. And you got to find the combination of things that work for you. It's usually there's not necessarily one thing that you're doing really well that's making the whole thing work. It's kind of a whole set of practices that you do that creates a culture on your farm that either sets you up for success or not. And I'm much smaller by comparison. We do only laying hens. I started in 2010. We started with 100 hens and a couple acres and quickly grew to 20 acres and then 50 acres. And for the last few years, we've been doing about 1,600 laying hens at any given time. And we may or may not have another 800 in the brooder. So we're feeding between 1,600 and 2,400 birds any given day. To do that, it's about one full-time, 50-hour week person feeding and collecting, and another about 20 hours a week washing and packing. And then we tack that on with the other deliveries that we're doing. There's also a few hours of slosh in there for setting up, moving fence, fixing all the things that broke. You know, tending to odd and end problems, pulling out lay nest pads and cleaning them. There's about 4 to 5 hours a week that get scheduled for that. We, like I said, only do laying hens. We keep them for about 28 months. We then send them to slaughter and sell them as stewing hens. About 90% of our eggs are sold either directly to or to stores, retail stores to then sell, or to restaurants and flats. About 40% go to restaurant and flats, the rest go to cartons, retail, and then kind of the overage slop goes to farmers markets when we have left. We'll send maybe 100, 150 to a market. Our birds come from Vega farms as well. I think that's a really important thing that we latched onto early is not only is that death rate up front really difficult to deal with financially and even emotionally, you know, each one of those birds, and you touched on having a loss, a bird's worth a few $100 over her lifetime. So that loss, depending on when you grab her, can be very expensive. So 50 pounds a week in dog food is not that much to save that many birds at all. We felt really fortunate that the birds were, you know, acclimated to our climate. We get them within a few hours of when they're hatched. We used to meet in the Walmart parking lot and do the shady shuffle. But then we got a little bit bigger and where we're getting our birds at time, and we kind of convinced them into dropping them off at our farm occasionally when we can. We house about 250 to 300 birds in a house. Those are rotated on pasture over primarily about 30 of the 50 acres that we do. We can theoretically move them to our other 20-acre property, but we have not to date. And they tend to move around pretty well. So the start for me was actually the very beginning of my farm. I wanted to have a farm where we were utilizing these extra resources that I knew we were going to have from a vegetable operation to provide extra feed and really just quality. We don't feed any less with all the scraps that we give because what we're concerned about is high quality protein. And then it was also helped us with the marketing niche and enabled us to get a foothold in the farmers markets that really became a backbone for us in the early years. Less so later on, but they were a really key way to getting us started. And then they also formed this relationship with restaurants. So our deal with, if you're gonna buy our eggs as a restaurant, is you have a standing order. You get them once or twice a week, the same amount every week. That allows us to plan production and get eggs off the farm. We deliver twice a week, so eggs are only on the farm for 3 to 4 days at most. We've been really lucky, I think, or fortunate, I should say, by focusing on feed quality. We can't turn it around every 2 days, but we were able to scale to a point where we can create a custom feed, and we have it delivered every 2 weeks so that we keep it as fresh as possible. Because, my thought is once you start to grind that stuff up and pelletize it, you begin to oxidize it, you degrade the quality of the feed fairly quickly. So the combination of those things, we're able to keep a fairly high lay rate. Our birds pretty quickly, when they start laying, ramp up to within 5 weeks of laying, get up into the 90%. And from there, over their lifetime, we average somewhere around 75%. And for us, that's really key, combined with keeping losses to a minimum to staying profitable. Because it's not a hugely profitable business to begin with. But we do keep maybe a 20% margin once you factor in certification costs and brooding costs and amortize those and all the things that we do. So there's some money to be made, but it comes at a huge cost. I certainly wouldn't be doing it myself if it were only birds of my size. We do it in combination with all the other things. One of the big things I think to think about if you're getting in this business to start with is, like Trini said, we close up every night at sunset and we let out every day at sunrise. So you are working sunrise to sunset 365 days a year without holiday, without break. You or someone is. And that can create a lot of strain on your operation. Whereas if we were only a vegetable operation, there are definitely times where you're working all the way for a couple of days. That doesn't happen. What else didn't I touch on? Feed, housing, size.
I thought I'd ask a few more questions, so.
Cool. Leave it there for now.
I know you're gonna have some more questions, but just briefly, so you know what I'm doing here is, I thought I'd ask a few questions about record keeping, pricing and profitability, and then sources of information and technical assistance, and then we can get on to public policy if we have time. But how about record keeping? And I was hoping maybe each of you could talk a little bit about who keeps records, how, when, and where. What information do your records track? And is it lay rate? Is it feed conversion? Is it how do you collect that information? Like, how do you do it? Is it a clipboard with a pencil and paper? Is it a smartphone? Is it how does it get from the field into somewhere else? And then what other tools? And then how do you use that information to figure out how to make your business more efficient and easier? Like, you figure out where the problem areas are, and you figure out that it's time to invest the money in an egg washer. At some point you did that. How did your record keeping lead into the decisions you make in your farm management? I guess is the short way to put that.
We keep extensive records at our farm. It all feeds into our QuickBooks accounting program. And so we track all of our costs and all of our income. So that's mainly just like, paying bills from there and creating invoices, receiving income. But it's very itemized. So like in our expense category for chickens, we have our laying hen and our meat birds separated. We separate out our feed, how much goes to birds, how much goes to laying hens. That expense is itemized. We've got labor itemized by whichever person is working with whichever animal. And we have a little more primitive system in the field where we've got written down on paper on clipboard how much feed a certain group got that given day. So we can track how much they're consuming, if if there's any loss. We don't track the cull rate of what they're consuming there. We just, in our packing shed, we generate a lot of seconds and, clean up like the leaves from the leeks that we've cleaned off from the harvest, and those go into big bins, and then those go either to pigs or chickens, depending on who's going where. So we don't track that as well. We do track the whey inputs, and we track the Cowborough Creamery inputs too, or the ice cream inputs too. So yeah, our QuickBooks accounting has evolved from like all of our years of farming, and we have very elaborate profit and loss reports and balance sheets. It's pretty extensive. We do have 3 full-time office staff who help feed that info into the system.
And that helps you make
Analyze
decisions.
efficiencies and where can we cut costs.
Let's have each. If you don't mind, let's have each of the panelists answer more or less.
We have QuickBooks, and it goes back to if you have over 3,000 birds with the FDA in the state, you have a whole bunch of record keeping you need to keep for them, mortality, feed consumption, vaccines, all of that. We have a tablet that we use because we also sell to Whole Foods, which becomes another entity that have requirements for reporting. And so we have a full tablet that monitors feed consumption, egg produced, mortality, weather conditions, everything on the tablet the guys fill out every day. And then we grab that information and we can see what's going on.
The tablet.
We have a tablet. The guys have a tablet, waterproof, supposed to be indestructible tablet that they already broke the one guard on it. But that happens. But yeah, we just have a tablet and they fill everything out.
And that feeds back into how
We
you manage.
do it once a week, and you get to a point where you know if something's wrong. I mean, you have all the paperwork, but and I mean, we're only doing chickens, so we're out there. If you know how many eggs come in, we collect all our eggs on flats, so we know what's going on. You see it, and they're filling out. If something's wrong, there's a water broker. You'll see what's going on.
I should also add that because we're C2F certified organic, we have record keeping requirements for that. So we do keep track of our records for that as well. It's a little bit separate process from the accounting program.
Right, so we're also certified organic, and so those same items we have to keep track of as well. And that's lay rate, mortality, field locations, the main buffers, maps, that kind of stuff. Those are the biggies. But those also help you figure out the productivity of your operation as well. So we use QuickBooks for income expense. We use Google Sheets, so just a basic spreadsheet fed by Google Forms. So employees can just usually have a smartphone, and if they're even in a Coop, they can just punch in the numbers and remember it. We keep it tracked by Coop. They get credit for eggs laid. So if we find a broken egg, or if we have evidence for that, we count that in numbers so we see what the output of the hens is. And then we also there's a couple different breakdowns. Once they get sent to what we call homers, and then restaurant grade, and then retail grade, so we kind of see the range, and that's often a good indicator of flock health or other conditions going on out there. And then we also, so we'll take that and feed that into, for lack of a better term, like an egometer. That's kind of like, that's how we keep track of where our profitability is, and make sure that we have to make any adjustments to our prices. Which I didn't mention, we started, to help with that, we started grading our eggs. Years back, for years, we didn't grade size. We just labeled them all small and sold them all at a single price. And to help raise our prices to get past that $8 point, we started grading them. So we started at 8. So now they go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll do peewees for 6 when we first start. And that really, that upped our average egg price over $2 overnight. It was awesome. And that really helped keep us in the game.
How did you decide on this price? How do you?
So yeah, looking at our cost was started going north of $6. If you have a bad time, we can start to see, we will re-put the numbers into there. If productivity drops, or we have illness, or we have a loss of numbers, feed went up, the usual crunch from both sides, and it was getting close to $7. So it's back down to closer to 6 something.
Interestingly enough, on the cost increase for us, we had 0 customer complaints because what ends up happening, mainly at the farmer's market is the market starts at 10 on a Saturday. A line starts forming at 9:30. By the time market's open at 10, there are 40 people in line ready for the eggs. And they just don't, they love the quality of the eggs so much, from like the way it tastes, the way it looks, and the story about how they're raised. They are able to absorb the increase in the dozen costs.
I went prepared and started with a spreadsheet when we raised our price. I broke down like price per gram of protein, and this is what you're getting, and blah, blah, blah. And I have this beautiful spreadsheet, and I think maybe 1% had it.
Real quick on record keeping, they're organic. I'm non-GMO certified, project certified. So I actually have to do more paperwork than they have to, because all my feed that comes in has to be tested.
Well, would you say, so which is better, non-GMO or organic?
It's a huge discussion. Yeah. What do you,
I don't know. I'm just saying is like, can organic be non-GMO as well?
It's supposed to be.
All organic feed.
So then
should not
organic
have
is
any GMO.
higher than just non-GMO.
Higher relative to what?
Price.
More strictly regulated.
Because it's organic could
A higher
be
certification.
living conditions, source of feed.
Animal welfare.
What is it?
So
Animal
we have an
welfare.
apparatus that helps us with that certification process. I think what he's dealing with is a much wider realm, right? Where you have to test your own batch.
I have
We don't
to,
have to test our
and-
feed coming and saying it's
yeah,
organic.
basically what it is their feed, they're taking the signature of another company saying, I'm organic.
And it's labeled as organic, and it comes with a certificate certified.
Where
organic.
I have to test, luckily I've gotten them to let me test the whole batch now for the year, but we still have to test all the products. So you got to decide what niche you're going to go with. If you're going to go organic, non-GMO, or if you're going to stay conventional.
How much does it,
Right.
how much does it add to the value of the eggs? I'm just thinking about, I'm sure you've heard of Joel Salatin and Polyface, and he's not organic. He has a reputation of high quality products, and he sells them well. Is it something more in California that people are demanding this organic?
It's not just here, not just in California, but in Georgia also.
Georgia what?
They want
State of Georgia.
Well, yeah, but I also think that,
How important this or better.
You said the doctor, you mentioned the doctor saying that dark eggs
The
better.
doctors of our customers, we hear testimony from our customers about why, like the pregnant women and the people who are recovering from cancer and the people who've had surgery, back-related neurological stuff. They are getting feedback from their doctors who are like Western doctors, not just alternative doctors who are saying, please eat pasture eggs because when the omega-3s or whatever it is that's in there, the nutrients that egg offers will help with healing or recovery or.
yeah, but that's anecdotal evidence. You can't really,
I think the doctors are basing on the omega-3.
They're still saying that. We're from Georgia and we hear the same thing at our conferences and stuff.
Yeah. So
Are you doing all rainbow eggs?
Yeah.
So
They're
they like the pretty.
the combo.
The combo.
And people really want the blue greens. They don't, the Americana and the Arcanas don't lay, their rate isn't as good as the other ones. So you don't get as many, but people would love to have like an all grain dozen, even though the eggs don't really taste different.
So, but
Yeah.
remember, so we have two competing situations here.
Okay.
If you're she has a very niche market where she's selling, so she can afford to pay those or feed those birds.
Mhm.
But in my size of operation,
Okay.
no way. You can't sustain that.
She's talking to her customers.
Because she's got a
You're
5,
shipping them out.
no, she's got a 5 to 6 pound bird she's feeding. I've got a 3.5 to 4 pound bird I feed.
And
Right.
I
Yeah.
think if you wanna like just go to the sheer cost of conventional feed versus organic feed, you're gonna save more than 60% on your conventional feed, purchasing. So it's a matter of what's your customer base and what are they going to expect, demand, and what's your philosophy as far as supporting a system or not supporting a system. You know, it's just, it comes down to basic bare bone economics or trying to support a system where we're using fewer pesticides.
See, and you have demand at the farmer's market, and you're not going to the farmer's market, right? Okay, so
product demand. Yes, product
I
demand.
mean, product demand, but it's still a difference, is what I'm saying. I mean,
There's
because-
still demand.
Do you sell all your eggs to only Whole Foods?
No.
So do you mark them all, and so they're not direct marketed from you, so you,
No, we deliver directly to stores in Sacramento, Davis, East Bay, and San Francisco.
but so then they're adding,
I mean, that really is. 'cause
Right.
you're-
But I think she's.
but they're adding on to the cost. In other words, what percentage are they getting for the eggs?
Anywhere from 35 to 45%.
Does that bother you?
How
No.
much do you get for your, can we ask? We can ask, you
It-
can you can
it-
decide what you
It
answer.
varies per store depending on what they buy.
So
The
wholesale
volume.
per dozen,
Give us the lowest amount.
$5 is where we are, is a good even number.
so you're breaking
Yes.
even.
No, that's what we
less.
sell it.
I think the common denominator though for all of us is that our birds are pastured and that makes a difference in the quality of the yolk and the color.
Yeah.
As long as they're having access, free ranging, moving around, not in cages, customers really want that. And as long as they're having access to something really green in their diet, it's gonna change the quality of the egg.
And
But I see these big producers when they're, quote, free range on a dry lot. No
But
grass.
pastured, if it has, I know it can't be verified, but if you know the grower or you can go to the website and see photos of the chickens in the pasture, if they're eating something green, it makes a difference in the quality of the.
Okay, well, I've seen pictures of chickens eating pasture and drive by their house, and it's,
Right, so it's just misinformation, it's mislabeling.
And California pasture can be seasonal.
it's allowed to be seasonal?
Well,
Well, so when I
Pasture
started
is
as small,
seasonal.
for example, I didn't even have the capacity to sprinkle pasture. So summer was dry lot.
so if it's not irrigated, it's dry in the summer.
Well, but, so that's, you know, to me, if you say that's pasture, that's kind of
well,
misleading.
the whole, let's take a step back
Let's
real
just listen.
quick. Pastured right now, you're allowed to have a 600-foot by 100-foot wide building and have grass on the side of it, let the birds go out, and you can call it pasture.
Because
So
there's no.
the
legal
definition, correct, there's no definition for pasture. There's the 108 feet rule that's out there. I forget who really brought that up. 108 square feet is how much you're supposed to have outside for each bird.
animal welfare.
Yeah. So that's kind of the standard.
108 square feet per bird.
We have
Outside.
Hold on for a second.
So
He's got a question.
let me just finish here real quick. So basically what you have is you have people calling stuff pastured now, and you have like the three of us that also have the definition of mobile coops. So what you really are looking for is the market has gone to a mobile coop situation. Whole Foods, if you go to Whole Foods, they have designation for the different types, and there's a pastured and there's actually a mobile coop.
Let's get your question, but then I'm gonna get back to my
question-
panel questions so we can cover all.
Right, because all of you guys talked about production level and dropping off. How do you know individual birds' production levels? Or do you guys track the fly?
They're all the same age for us, all in, all out.
It's
You know,
a group by age.
If you want to go out at night and take your fingers and measure their pelvic bone and see if they're narrower or wider, you can do that.
We were
Good
told,
luck.
we were told earlier that the birds need 116 square inches.
Inside.
Okay,
That's inside.
okay, inside, and then 121 square inches on the side. That's outside, right? I mean, that's inside. So you're talking about outside when you said measuring?
Yeah, for the green grass access.
Okay.
And whose regulations are these on?
It's
Who
not
said-
a regulation,
who
it's a
Standard.
standard. It's just kind of out there that everybody grabbed
Because
onto.
there's different animal welfare standards. Yeah. Okay, so one more question, then I.
Looks like
Yeah,
you can let it roll.
Okay.
I just let it go.
Been for flocks for 28 months. How long do you guys keep your flocks?
Close to that for the laying hens, yeah.
And then you
2
have-
years and then they we phase them out, and they become stew birds. We sell the stew birds at markets for stew stock.
I'm about 80 to 84 weeks.
And then you have the next flock ready, already laying?
Yeah, already
Already
overlapping.
And then I mix into smaller flocks throughout the year to hit little bumps and walls. Yeah.
Peaks and valleys.
You mean you add birds to an existing?
No, I'll bring in a new flock. We bring birds in 1st of February, middle of February, into February, and then in March.
And
And then we'll
you
add,
keep your flocks.
those stay consistent, and we'll supplement with a flock in the summer, and then this year we brought one in the fall. I don't like to bring birds in the fall, but we did this year.
And you have some mixed birds.
How many vaccine do you need to vaccinate your bear till line?
We're doing the salmonella, E. coli, the hatchery takes care of Merrick's, pox, what else is he doing for us? The hatchery can't do the salmonella spray the first day, you have to do that yourself. Because it's,
Is that a dead vaccine or
what's that?
dead attenuated vaccine?
Kill vaccine?
Killed vaccine?
The first one is, I think,
Non-living.
yeah.
Is that-
And the person last week had that scheduled.
Oh.
Some are killed and some are live, right?
Yeah, yeah. The one in the breast injection.
Oh, injection?
Yeah.
That's killed, yeah, okay.
And that's not fun because it's a very late night.
I know. So you mentioned that salmonella and E. coli only in your.
That's our main ones. And I think there's a couple other, I can't remember what's recipe.
You should have been here last week.
Yeah.
The veterinarian that went through all the diseases, it was enough to make you never want to have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I just want to know when the hens lay the eggs, how long do they last? And are they refrigerated once you collect them? Anyone can answer
So
that.
my operation, we collect them and wash them the same day that they're laid,
Okay.
and then they go in the fridge. So they're chilled, but the next day they're going to market. So they're chilled for about 12 hours. And then they're sold. We transport them in coolers with frozen ice bottles to keep them cold market, especially during summer.
So ours are unrefrigerated technically. So they'll go into a cool room in the summer, but they'll stay out in the winter. Reason being, we don't want to refrigerate them, unrefrigerate them. We're sending them to the market, and we don't have a cold truck. So we leave them unrefrigerated until they get to store.
And our trucks are all refrigerated.
And how long does it take to get to the store?
So 3 to 4 days max, they've been out.
Okay.
We collect twice a day. Eggs are washed constantly. And then they're put in the cooler, or they're put in one of the refrigerated vans and cooled down there. You know, the one thing you need to remember if you're going to do pasture poultry, that if it's 110 outside, that egg is 110 degrees. So you got to make sure you got to get it cooled off. You know, it's all in the packaging. Remember, if you put warm eggs in a cardboard box, you got to figure out how to cool them off because the inside of that box is going to be warm.
How about where do you get, if you need information, where do you get, I know there's a whole lot of different kinds of information, but who can you rely on for sound information when you need it? Farmers, an MPAN, Alpha, UC Extension, university, your neighbor?
We rely on our CCOF inspector a lot because they kind of have current, for the certified organic, California certified organic farmers. They come once a year and we can always email that organization, just get the lowdown on any changes to regulation.
Yeah, I think it depends on what the question is. The certification question, obviously, it's sort of higher. It's a legal question, the internet, CDFA. If it's a health question, usually the trickier ones. We've tried like NCAT, the extension specialist, but actually Vega Farms was a really good resource. Vega, so in that true.
I have liability insurance?
Yes.
Who advises you on that? Your own lawyer?
No, the stores are going to require it.
Well, yeah, but when you're selling at the farmer's market.
You're required to have it
You're
at the market.
What level of liability?
They give us a little.
I think 1 million
1 million.
minimum.
Here in California.
So that's by the market association. They'll have a certain requirement if you want to.
Let's let,
So for our feed, we have a nutritionist. There's a couple of very good poultry veterinarians in California. One of them we have on retainer. Equipment, we have a couple sources that we'll call there if there's a problem. And a lot of times if you have an issue or something that's happening, through one of those, they'll reference you somewhere, or even where we buy our vaccines from, one of the salesmen has seen everything. So you can definitely get information from there. I don't use a lot of the extension information. Just seems, a lot of times it's behind the times. We're out moving ahead. You got to be able to change quickly. But there's enough resources. If you're going to do this and get in the market, you can find the people that'll help you or get the right information from you.
I'd say generally, yeah, you want to talk to anyone and everyone and then make up your own mind.
Do you think that California is,
let me get to Shelley's question right after.
I was going to change subject, so go ahead.
I just want to know if California is supporting you with all these rules and regulations. Do you see change coming? Because it sounds very onerous. All the rules, all the regulations, all of the inspections.
And it is.
I come from a construction background for 25 years. Farming's easy.
I can't believe you can say that.
Yeah, it is. It's easier than doing construction and all the regulations and workman's comp you have to deal with there.
Right.
But you've got workman's comp on a farm as well.
But it's not to the extent you have in construction and everything. And it's, the inspectors, they come once a month to us. They see us. We know what they're coming to do. If you do what you're supposed to do, it's not an issue.
Okay.
The direction I was hoping to go to is just employees. My son and I run the farm. We've ramped up. We've started doing meat birds also. And we're, and what you got to realize is we're exhausted. We're about ready to fall over, which is what farming does. And we've been doing this a while, but how do you guys choose people to come on? Do you start them as interns to get some extra help? What do you suggest when we're expanding? Because we've never gone outside the family yet, but all my boys are, flying the coop, so to speak, except him. And now we're looking that what did you?
That's a good on.
Yes. You're going to get some crazy people.
Basically have a really simple application process where you get the word out somehow that you're looking for a certain position. Have a position description, have a basic application, and have it include references, like 3 references. All the references, follow up on all of that, and interview the person and just get a feel for the person. And one of the requirements is you want the person to have agricultural experience. Put that in the job description. Just get pretty specific with what the job is going to entail and possibly what experience you're looking for. But in our experience, because we were vegetables first, we have people who have been on the farm and now their kids are farming with us. And so it evolved, but a lot of the initial applicants had agricultural backgrounds and they just really knew how to do things. They had the common sense.
You didn't whine as much?
No.
We have gone there. We've had some, older teenage kids, like 18, 19. It's hot. Oh my God. We're in Brentwood. I've heard there's woofers, there's interns to start.
No, here's your easiest way. Go to Stockton or Modesto area and find yourself a labor contractor that's working in the orchards or vineyards.
Okay.
And he'll provide you an employee.
Oh.
Even for regular employment, you think it's worth paying the fee?
I have two working for me right now, and it worked out great. And I've gone through a couple of guys through a labor contractor that it didn't work out, and you just send them back and you have a new one come. And their fees aren't as bad as, the labor contractors aren't as bad as the employment agents.
So if they're with the contractor, do they cover all their workman's comp and all that? You just pay the guy their fee?
Yes. And you could have him, if you only needed him for 3 days a week, he comes for 3 days a week.
But isn't part of the problem is you're not paying that much money? It's gonna be hard to find good employees when you're paying at the very low end of the living wage.
Well, we're not doing rocket science. We're talking about helping us with moving manure and cleaning out nests and doing stuff so that we can focus on more of our soil health, and because we're doing everything. We're doing the bookkeeping, we're doing soil health, we're rebuilding it after some floods 2 years ago. I mean, we're pulling our hair out because we don't have the feelers. But I didn't know really where to look. We've just gotten these whiny kids.
How many acres do you have?
We only have 10. And we've got a good amount of laying hens, and we just started doing meat birds, and that's been an interesting. So I heard Vega has meat birds also.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried them? Good. Are they rangers? Do they actually forage?
Vega Browns.
Vega
They
Browns?
do, yeah. They do forage.
Well, you must not like them if you buy your birds from Pennsylvania.
That's because the Freedom Ranger has a higher yellow fat content, so we like it more. We like getting the birds from Pennsylvania more.
And that's one thing, we've gone through a bunch of hatcheries, and I like Vega for egg layers, but we do have to have the green and blue eggs, darn it. Those people are crazy. They taste better, you know?
Just put one in.
And we have a signature that we do it.
Flavor is one for dozen. One or dozen.
Yeah.
I want that.
I wanted to add something that's really helped our farm the last 3 years. We were fortunate to get a value-added producers grant, which is a federal program. The USDA administers it, and it is competitive, and the application's a headache. But if you're doing meat birds and you're, taking that and turning, we're using it for our pork, but you may be able to qualify to get the grant from the USDA for value-added
We're working on that.
products.
Yeah.
And they are really just easy to work with, and they want to see farms succeed. And ours was a 3-year grant. We got $60,000 for 3 years. We had to do a match, so we had to have we were already creating the sausage and bacon and other stuff, but it augmented our income for those 3 years.
I'm doing a program with Texas A&M, and it is for veterans and also other people. But we were taking a class there for 18 months. And after the 18 months is over, it qualifies you to get a loan. And go ahead.
It's an operating loan cost without having to have the experience.
That's pretty cool.
2 year experience.
But you had to take the class to get that loan.
Yeah, they have to be able to qualify without the experience.
And what they do is they actually teach you how to do your business plan. And then they give you classes based on what type of form you want to have. Okay, and so it goes on for 18 months, supposed to be 6 hours a week of class, but it's not. You do it in your own home. We went to Texas once, we'll have to go maybe 2 more times for graduation, and that's it. But they're knocking off, if you're a beginner farmer, they're knocking off those years that you need for experienced farmers. They're knocking off the 2 years that you have to get this loan that you're talking about.
I have a friend who went to the Center for Land-Based Learning program. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's in Winters. And she was trying to get a beginning farmer loan, and she could not.
Well, they actually, I'm sure it's going to come here because the first, this is like Congress set up this new thing. And so it started at that university. But we know for a fact that it's going to throughout all the states.
They're working with the Veterans Coalition as well.
So when I started, when I started, you needed to have 2 to 3 years of a schedule left. So you needed to have something under your belt or collateral to put up.
And this program is helping you not to have that. That's what it's
great.
doing.
All right, so
There's also the microloan program that started in 2013, 2014. I don't know what that.
Farm Service Agency is another resource for.
These are all through FSA. Yeah, that's definitely, you want to go there first.
may not be open right now.
They're not, yeah.
What I'm saying is last month they had an opening, so every 6, they have a rotation schedule where they are open for other people. So what they try to do is fill so many spots for veterans, and the other slots is, because people from all over different states go there. And the other slots are just for individuals. So I just want to point that out.
So at this point, I'm going to focus on the people who haven't asked questions. If you've already asked a question, let's see if we can have everybody in the room have a chance to ask a question if you would like to. And also, if you've thought of things as went along, and I guess one of the questions is your operation profitable directly or indirectly? And other questions. But, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. I need to know the regulation for the rules that I can buy vaccines. If I planning to produce batch of chicken, meat chicken, it's around like 3,000 per week. Is that the rules that?
That salmonella vaccine isn't required.
No, I don't need salmonella because the chicks coming from the salmonella-free action. So if I need to buy Newcastle vaccine, just in case, do I have to go to the where I can go, or do I have to tell the veterinarian?
No, you don't have to. Animal Health International is a good resource in the desktop.
For those of you using the coops, what kind of flooring did you settle in on? Is it wire flooring, solid?
My solid pipe. We clean them out.
And what are you using for your bedding or anything?
We have nest boxes. They're mounted to the walls, and they have liners that are
Anything on the floor itself?
floor sawdust.
Yeah, plywood, and then in our last round of coops, we actually invested in, we found some like discounted linoleum that we glued down on the floors, because when we came time to scrape them and flip them out, it made it a lot easier. And then, yeah, nest boxes. We have some wooden nest boxes, and then we went to the rollouts, the galvanized rollouts, big grass pads.
The bottom of the nest box is at an angle, so the eggs roll forward into a basket. That's
Do you know that pitch?
It's pretty gradual. Not more than, a little more than that. Yeah. Maybe 10.
You can look them up on the
Yeah.
Cool brand.
Yeah, KUHL.
KUHL. Just look them up. I'm sure you can find their specs online.
And what do you use for anything on your floor? And the
Shaving.
Yeah. Do you using rice bowls?
I've heard of that.
Here in California.
No. The cheapest for us was just wood shavings.
I start the chicks out with wood shavings, but our floor on our coops is actually the 2x4 no-climb fence that we weld to our steel grid, and then we put plastic poultry slats on top of that. So poultry slats are 2x4 that they use in the commercial barns.
Cushy.
No, it's hard plastic. But they're 1-inch openings, so basically, except for in December and right now, we have to scrape them out maybe once or twice, but other than that, everything falls right through. And the only reason we're scraping them out right now because it's damp.
Yeah.
That's
Where do you buy poultry slots?
Strand Egg and Ceres.
Then we had a question online about pasture rotation. What is your guys' general rule on it? How often do you rotate?
We basically have a farm plan where we have to consider cover crop, grain, row crops, which the vegetables, and then chickens, and where we want the fertility to be. So we have to factor all that. But basically our dimensions for one block for the pastured laying hens would be about 5 acres. We have about 6 houses in there that house about 200 birds, and those get moved once a month within the 5 acres.
So I tried at one point. So we rest about a third of our ground and farm about 2/3 of our ground every year. And at one point tried to get index cards out and make it all line up beautifully. And it has never worked. So as Nigel said at one point, we operate on chaos theory. So the coops go to where they need to go for as long as they need to be there.
We try to move every week to 2 weeks, but it matters what you're doing with your ground. I have a piece of property that has a 25-year-old seed bank on it. So every time we've turned it or tried to do something, we get a different weed.
Oh.
So we've kind of held them back at times, and then we'll move them back and forth because we've got great soil now, and we've gotten rid of the weeds because as the weeds sprouted, the birds would walk, take out the weeds. So it's kind of like you kind of feel it, and sometimes we were supposed to move coops today. It's raining. You're not moving coops. We're not going to move them for a couple more days. So it just, you try to do it regularly. Our manure drops through the floors, theirs doesn't. So I need to move more often.
And do you reseed your pastures? How do you manage your pastures?
Well, we're working, we have everything comes up now because we have a combination of brome, ryegrass, and clover, but we're reseeding the new areas with the same combinations.
What's the combination again?
Ryegrass, brome, and brome's a type of grass that's water resistant, heat tolerant, and clover.
Clover.
What type of clover do you use?
I don't remember what we have.
We use a red clover.
The crimson?
Yeah.
And we also have some brassicas out there too.
Huh.
Brassicas.
For your family. Other questions from those who haven't? I'll ask you, do you think that I know last week Tim mentioned that the fertility is an important benefit from the pasture poultry operation. Do you think that well, yours is just poultry and pasture. Yours is poultry and pasture and vegetables and no other animals, and you include hogs. So do you think how do you evaluate your poultry operation and how it contributes to your whole farm and its profitability? Rod.
We do soil testing every year. It's required by our organic certifier. And we also monitor vegetable crop health. So let's say we have in one block of pastured poultry. After 1 year's time, we move that to the next block over, and then we grow a vegetable crop such as peppers. And wherever we plant a crop that we're going to be harvesting, after the chickens have rotated through there, they are incredibly dark green. The peppers themselves are giant. You can see the results just by observation. And the soil testing also shows like higher nitrogen levels. But the yield, the size of the fruit of the peppers, and the plant vigor and color it's just amazing to see the difference from when we just use ordinary compost, which is plant-based, like a green manure, versus the animal manure, fertility, rotating fertility. In that way, I think it is very advantageous for us.
Yeah, I mean, the same front, when we're rotating it through fields, I feel like, I think again of a farmer I looked up to a lot, Nigel, who his eyes would get all beady wide, and he would just be like, chicken shit, just the what it does to the soil is magic. And it really does stimulate the whole biology in a way that, I don't know that we can measure very well yet. And so we've used it in areas where we've had disease issues, or some phylums we tried it on. And yeah, I think not only yield and color, but vigor and resiliency, and these things are a little bit harder to measure. Anecdotally, yes, it makes a difference.
Oh, I should also add, the chickens are self-fertilizing their own feed. So where you have like a semi-permanent cover crop or a crop that they're foraging, they're actually helping themselves grow because they're fertilizing that that they're eating. So it's helping the vigor and the productivity of the chicken as well.
Yeah,
Would you like to comment on that question?
You're gonna laugh. Toads.
Toads?
Toads. When we moved into this piece of property, there was nothing. It was just weeds and everything. And I have toads everywhere. And everybody says, well, how do you know your dirt or whatever, your ground, your farm's working? And I said, we have toads everywhere. So toads.
Biodiversity.
Frogs.
But we have toads, not frogs. They're toads.
They're bigger.
Yes, they're huge. And there's thousands of them. So, because I've had people, comment, well, your nitrogens, you're probably too heavy in nitrogen. Well, no, the grasses and clovers and everything are using it up. And if we didn't have healthy soil, we wouldn't have toads everywhere.
So, but anyway, we actually had chicken litter put on our pecan trees, and then we had a bumper crop. Then we had a Michael, Hurricane Michael. So, but on the pecan trees, and we really had a bumper crop.
I'm going to try to wrap up unless there's another burning question. With the question to the farmers, if you were to recommend to Extension or University what needs to be researched, what experiments would you say need to be done?
I would really like to see, because the water board has kind of trying to crack down on pastured poultry operations, I'd like to see research done on how pastured poultry operations do not contaminate the watershed, because they are going to be expecting us to do extensive reporting on any nitrogen, possible runoff, and fees will be incurred, and we're not buying it. We're saying we're low risk we've argued that in the letter we got basically from them, saying you've got to keep track of everything, your inputs and how many birds are there and density, and we're just saying we're a low risk. They haven't replied.
Right, so did they give, so your questions would be like how nutrient management, runoff, the movement of nutrients over the land and the water.
With the pastured poultry system.
How much is being exported in eggs?
Yes, because we really think it's being integrated and the system is kind of contained. We really feel strongly there isn't that much runoff, or there's no runoff.
Importing feed, exporting products, and what would you guys say?
Piggyback on that, and expand just pasture poultry relative to food safety, positive and negative. And there was a 2-year study. We guys part of all the Perez's 2-year study. Yeah, so they did a really cool study where they were swabbing everything on farm and trying to figure out what tracked where and what soil practices and conditions.
Taking fecal samples.
Yeah, I mean,
see
they
if there was E.
swabbed
coli.
everything. So more of that type of work to really quantify and not just kind of say 90 days or 120 days or it's bad or it's good, but really try to understand a little bit more. Yeah, why are we setting a message?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's big enough pastured poultry people now doing this that the extension, the university needs to do some type of cooperation and do some research to get the true numbers.
And to do that research on farm?
Yeah. Yeah, it needs to be done on the farm. You've got some of the biggest portable or mobile coop operations in the U.S. in California. So it's right here in your back door that can be used.
And what in particular?
Nutrients,
Pasture management is something I haven't seen a lot of literature about. For pasture management.
What's tough about pasture management is you have so many different climates in California.
Right.
On the North Coast, it's raining all the time. Right. You're not worried about it. We're going to see rain for another 3 months, I hope, but probably it'll be a month, and then we're going to turn the sprinklers on. So you've got different pasture management plans, but you do have a lot of different climates that you have to deal with, and that would be something. Yeah.
And farms in different ecosystems.
Also for the meat operations where people want to be able to process their animals on farm, what is the basis for that regulation that restricts employees from doing that? That just seems ludicrous to me to have it be family only.
Right.
There must be
employees can be trained and
Yes,
family gets
yeah, I
tired
just don't,
eventually.
I don't quite get what the risk is, if it's more risk to the employee versus family members. I think the more on-farm processing we can do and still keep the food system healthy for meat production, then it's just better for those business entities.
It'd be
To
interesting
not
to
have-
learn, how is it that regulation came to be written as it was, and is it time to revisit that?
And reduce the reliance on a, remote slaughter facility.
Which increases training birds.
Yes.
Want to ask
Okay.
about the source of water. Is that all the source of water wells or some sort other source?
For me, it's groundwater.
I have district water and well water.
Does it cost you much with the city water?
District water, and we finally got our 3-phase in. But we were running a generator and they were actually the same cost.
Oh.
We have reasonable district water, not real cheap. But now that we have the electricity and everything set up to run our well, it's much cheaper to use a well.
So I want to thank Trini, Chris, Ross, thank you very much for coming. I know that you probably got up very early and had very long days before you came here. And I just want to acknowledge the work you're doing and thank you for it and thank you for sharing your experience.
Thanks for having us.